You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Do you want to experience the thrill of a Packers game at Lambeau Field? If so, be sure to get your game ticket from the longtime trusted source in Wisconsin, Ticket King. Visit their locations in Milwaukee and Green Bay. Just go to their website at ticketking.com. Again, that's theticketking.com.
Rodgers again. Looking to the outside again. Throwing. Over for a touchdown by Geronimo Allison. I mean, you can't stop him if he does that.
You're listening to the best Packer radio show on the internet.
Cheesehead Radio.
Reach the office.
Get those back.
So I think that's the logical explanation.
Let's just, say that didn't happen.
It was a return to greatness. It was a return to form.
It's crazy. And he just kind of flew under the radar.
Get this out there so I sound good on Cheesehead Radio.
Yeah.
No negativity allowed, sir.
So I think that's actually going to be really exciting to watch. I don't think there's anything positive we can say. There's a lot.
Oh, you were looking for positive.
Yeah.
I guess that's what I meant. Positive, I think. Hello, Packer Nation, and welcome back. After a brief 2-week hiatus for the holidays, we are back with you live tonight. Our hosts tonight are the enigmatic C.D. Angeli of PackersTalk.com and Cheesehead TV, the astounding Michelle Bruton of Cheesehead TV and Bleacher Report, the stupendous Jayme Snowden of Cheesehead TV, and little old me, Jersey Al of Packers Talk and Cheesehead TV. Now, joining us later in the show will be an esteemed guest, author Jeff Pearlman, New York Times best-selling author, and he is the author of our favorite book of this holiday season, Gunslinger, all about Brett Favre, the man. Sponsoring the Packers Talk Network this year have been the fine folks at Ticket King. We'd like to thank them so much for their support. This Sunday could be the last home game for the Packers this year, so if you want to go to the game and you don't have your tickets yet, please check them out at theticketking.com. That's theticketking.com. So let's get this ball rolling with some Packers news.
Packers news.
Well, we tend to open the news segment of the show with the injury report, and unfortunately, as we head into the postseason, we see that the Packers have 14, count them, 14 players on the injury report this week. Missing practice were cornerback Quentin Rollins, running back James Starks, and linebacker Joe Thomas. Limited were Randall Cobb, J. Elliott, T.J. Lang, Nick Perry, and Demarius Randall.
Now, one silver lining is the fact that after suffering a scary-looking head or neck injury in Week 17 that sent him to the locker room on the cart, strapped to a board, and then to the hospital, Rollins was back walking around the locker room the next day and has avoided any major injury to the area, although he is in concussion protocol, and thank goodness for that. Best to you from all of us here at Cheesehead Radio.
Definitely. And speaking of the cornerbacks, as you can tell, there's a shortage of them. So much so that defensive back Micah Hyde, who has played at safety and slot corner over the last 4 years, had to move to the perimeter to cover Golden Tate against the Lions. Now, the Packers have promoted Herb Waters off the practice squad to add additional help. The spot opened when they had to place quarter McKinton Dorliant, who injured his knee in Week 17 on season-ending IR.
Now, one player who overcame injuries earlier in the season to return to the team and make an impact has been tight end Jared Cook, and he wants to keep it going past this season. Now, Cook said that he, without a doubt, wants to remain in Green Bay next season, but has not begun contract talks. He wants to focus first on the goal he's been chasing his entire career, win in the playoffs.
Well, we're going to be speaking with Jeff Pearlman, the author of the Brett Favre biography Gunslinger, in a little bit. And the Gunslinger himself made headlines this week when he said he believes the Packers are, quote, the team to beat in the NFC, and expressed confidence in their Super Bowl hopes.
Of course, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And Stephen A. Smith had to chime in and add that Favre was only trying to, quote unquote, jinx Rodgers and the Packers with his proclamation of confidence.
If you'll be able to make it to Lambeau this weekend to see the Packers take on the Giants, make sure to stop and view the snow sculptures that the 3 members of Team USA snow sculpture will be creating outside Lambeau. The trio won an Olympic bronze medal in 1998 for their snow sculpting efforts.
That is information I did not know. Finally,
I didn't think many would.
Very good. Learn something new every day here on Cheesehead Radio. Finally, we're all still somewhat in shock that Aaron Rodgers called his shot and actually delivered on his promise to run the table. But he's not going to test his luck. Rodgers said he won't promise the Packers will run the table in the playoffs, although he's confident. But nothing is guaranteed in the postseason, and like Rodgers himself said, it's win or go home at this point.
And that was your Packers News of the Week. Now it's time for your
Packer Tweets from Packer Tweets.
This week, we start you out with the Packer Ranter, who is very likely pointing out his critique directly on one of my unnamed co-hosts. Suffers a scathing rebuke of Packers Twitterati, about 6 weeks ago. If I was petty, I'd go back and find all the people who said Rodgers was on the decline, but I'm not. But you know who you are.
Well, I'm glad I wasn't that idiot co-host. Speaking of scathing rebukes, ex-Bears cornerback Charles Tillman noted the Packers might be a little short-handed in the secondary, and in one tweet gave credit to the Packers while dissing on his old team. I'm ready to run the table if y'all need some cornerbacks at Aaron Rodgers 12. Hashtag still trying to get a ring in retirement.
Well, we just might be interested, Charles. Keep your phone handy. And divisional rivals are a fun target when you've run the table and you've recaptured the division title once again. Consider the core Vikings, who at one point stood 5-0 and made their fans actually cocky enough to challenge us. So much for that, as our friend Jeremy Vanderlyn notes. Remember that time when the Vikings traded away their first-round pick for Sam Bradford and then missed the playoffs?
Oh, yes. It's all fun and games right now. But for a fleeting moment at the end of the game, following a late touchdown, Packer fans around the world were triggered into a panic watching the Lions tee up for an onside kick that, if recovered, could possibly lead to overtime. As we all fumbled the word Bostic into our tweeters with trembling fingers, our own Jason Perrone delivered the essential tweet. Onside recovery by a Packers tight end. This tweet is nearly 2 years too late.
That tweet brought a collective sigh and then a collective cheer throughout Packer Nation. And that certainly was your Cheesehead Radio Tweet of the Week.
Tweet of the Week.
All right. Well, welcome back. It's Cheesehead
Somebody
Radio.
was on mute.
Wait a minute. We weren't supposed to be here this week. We weren't supposed to be here at all. Remember, we were 4-6. 4-6. We'll be done around a little bit. Yeah. What happened? We're here. Do you know why we're here? Why are we here, guys?
Because Aaron Rodgers said we would be here.
We ran the table. Yes.
I don't know. I don't like the finality of that. I'm not buying that we're done running the table, even though Rodgers won't extend it. I'm thinking, we just put like a leaf in the table, so now the table's just a little bit longer. So we just got to go. It's still the same table, right? So it's not a different table, but we just got to go a little bit further now because we put some leaves in there. So that's my take.
It's Thanksgiving Day, and we've got a lot of extended families showing up that we didn't expect, and we had to put a leaf in the table.
The doorbell rang, and we found ourselves with a plethora of people, and in this case, another game to play, so we got to put another leaf in the table.
Well, if only we had a plethora of cornerbacks.
Oh.
If only that was the plethora of people we were talking about.
What's the best opposite word of plethora? Michelle, you're our wordsmith.
I can do this. A dearth. We have a dearth of cornerbacks.
About paucity, right? Am I pronouncing it right?
Paucity, yeah, paucity.
Yeah, that would work too, right? Paucity? Okay.
Yep. Scarcity.
I like that.
We ain't got none.
Nada. Nine. Yet.
No.
Oh, man. So,
I'm glad we're all in a good mood anyway.
We are. I'm in a great mood.
We're all very happy about not having cornerbacks.
We're deliriously in denial, I guess.
let's
Okay.
talk about it.
We're in those playoff spirit.
Yes, but let's get a little serious here now. Let's be honest. Dom Capers still taking some shots. I think most of us are intelligent enough to agree that you can't make chicken salad out of chicken. So he's obviously doesn't have a lot of talent. Obviously, he's taken Madden free agent level players and trying to stick them into spots. How far can this team go in the playoffs with this defense? Can the offense completely take us all the way through, and the defense just has to play just good enough to just hold them down enough so the offense can score enough points?
I mean, I think there's no question that the Packers' absolute biggest weakness heading into the postseason is its secondary, and it could be very much the thing that is its undoing. I think we've seen the secondary be a bend but don't break unit for the last 6 games, and that's been okay. But obviously, when you get into the playoffs, it's a whole different story. The caliber of opponent goes way up. I don't think Eli Manning's passing prowess strikes fear into the hearts of many, but you can't underestimate Odell Beckham, and even Sterling Shepard's had a great year. So, I think that, I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I think that if they lose, it's going to be because of the secondary.
Well, yes. I mean, that's definitely, we're just sitting here talking about how there's no cornerback. I think that's the most terrifying part of going into the playoffs, but the fact that that we have such a prolific offense right now, and that Aaron Rodgers is firing on all cylinders, I think that we're all okay with that being a little bit of weakness, because I feel that we feel a little bit more comfortable in shootouts. But for as weak as this defense has been, for as many times as we question it and sit there and watch it, as Michelle was saying, bend, don't break, it's been amazing to see how, many times they actually do get the stop or make the big interception or actually do hold teams to not a ton of points. I mean, last week, the last couple of games of giving 27, 25, 24, those have been the high ones lately. I mean, it was 13 points, 10 points. I mean, yeah, okay, Texans are not the best offense, but holding Seattle to 10 points, that was pretty impressive. So I think in the playoff mentality, the defense could do it. But yeah, when the Packers lose or if they lose, it will be because of the defense.
Right. Bend not break has been Capers' mantra forever, and he drives a lot of Packers fans crazy when other teams are gaining tons of yards, but really he couldn't care less. It all comes down to how many points they give up, hold them to field goals, get a turnover, a big turnover when you need it, and win the game, and they're perfectly fine. And that's really what they're going to have to depend on. They're going to have to generate some turnovers and keep the Giants as much as they can out of the end zone and kicking field goals. And I think they can. I think they can do it. I think if you get enough pressure on Manning and against a weak offensive line, especially the offensive tackles, I think that they can do it. So we shall see.
Right now, other than Aaron Rodgers, and I think this is an interesting question to throw it out too here as our last question before we get to Jeff Pearlman, our guest. Other than Aaron Rodgers, where's the strength of this team right now? I mean, what's the part of the team that you think has risen to the top? I know my answer, but I'm interested to hear what yours is.
What if we all say it on 3 and see if it's the same thing?
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Ty Montgomery.
We knew you were going to say that. That's why we
tricked you.
Fooled me.
So
but
start us
do we
out.
all actually think it's Ty Montgomery?
Go right ahead, Michelle.
Well, I think, for me it's obvious. And I think that as we've seen Aaron Rodgers sort of find his rhythm over the last 6 games, a lot of that is owed to the newfound success of the run game, which was really struggling after they lost Eddie Lacy and James Starks. I think that my only wish for this, well, not my only wish for this, but one of my wishes for this season is that Mike McCarthy had committed to using Ty Montgomery as the featured back earlier in the year, because I think that, it's not like the Packers could have done any better. They won their last 6 games, but I do think that it would have helped the offense turn things around a little bit earlier. I think he's the real deal. I think they don't even have to draft a running back in the first couple rounds. They'll take one eventually, but, I think that He's someone who has revitalized the offense, has opened up a whole new section of Mike McCarthy's playbook, and is the type of player that wins playoff games.
Well, and the reason I didn't jump in and say Ty Montgomery with you, which I think we all know I've been a big fan of his for a while and was really excited in the way that he has become so important to the team, is that I don't think it's necessarily a person. I think the difference in the team from the 4-6 team and the 10-6 team is the fact that this team doesn't quit. When it gets its back up against the wall, it keeps fighting. And I don't know if that came from Aaron Rodgers saying we're going to run the table and everyone else going like, oh, he just went out and told everyone we are going to do it, we got to do it, let's do it, and like them just buckling down and deciding to do it or what. But I feel that the mentality has just changed, and that winning helps change that mentality. But there's something about this team now that I feel that they're going to keep playing. They're going to be able to give up that big play and not be defeated and not need to give up the drive. And so that's the thing I like the most about the team besides Aaron Rodgers.
I gotta give a little love to some of the big uglies. You know, I'm gonna go with the offensive line, and specifically, I'm gonna go with David Bakhtiari, who I think has had a fantastic year. He's kept Rodgers' left side clean for the majority of the season. I think he's really developed into one of the top 5 offensive tackles in the league. So I've got to go with him. I think he's really done a fantastic job.
All right, and speaking of fantastic jobs,
Cheesehead Radio special guest.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you have been waiting for what has been, I guess, the best gift under my Christmas tree this year, which is, of course, the fine book called Gunslinger, The Remarkable and Probable Iconic Life of the One and Only Brett Favre, we have the author, New York Times bestseller, Jeff Pearlman. Welcome to Cheesehead Radio. How are you?
I just want to say, and I wrote the book, but if that is the best gift under your Christmas tree, you got some uncaring relatives right there. I mean, that book costs like $16 on Amazon. That's the best gift you got under your tree? Come on.
That was my Christmas, my friend. Feel sorry for
that.
Great things from small packages.
Really seriously.
Yeah. I mean, now I will say, when I was growing up, like for Hanukkah, I'd be excited if I got like the REO Speedwagon record, but that's because my parents gave us crappy gifts. You know,
I'm cool with that. Was it on an 8-track or cassette?
No, it was a record. Come on, I'm 44. It was a record.
Wow.
I don't want to brag. I don't want to get too cocky. But one Hanukkah, I got Chicago 17, REO Speedwagon's Wheels Are Turning, and Hall & Oates' H2O, all the same Hanukkah year.
Oh. Hall & Oates.
Love Hall &
Oates.
Bet you can guess what your Pandora station is set to.
Hall & Oates.
Exactly. All right.
This is on my list. One of my favorites.
Yes. Well, welcome to the show. I guess I want to start you with a quick question. One thing you mentioned on your Twitter account, as you wrote Gunslinger, was the number of people that you interviewed, the number of people that you talked to. Talk a little bit about that process and what it was like going out and who's some of the most interesting, and what was some of the more, I guess, unexpected people that you ended up talking to that just maybe gave you an amazing story?
Brett didn't talk. So
when
you're writing a book and your main, I wasn't surprised, and that's not. He doesn't owe me anything, so it's not like I'm not criticizing him. You know, people don't owe you. You're not making money off of it. You have no editorial control over it. I understand. He did send me a text at the end, sort of, I guess, explaining why he decided not to talk. But when your main subject matter does not talk, it really sort of inspires you and motivates you to get out there. So. First, to my great sort of surprise and joy, his mom, Benita, was awesome. I mean, awesome. His sister, Brandy, was terrific. His brothers, Scott and Jeff, were great. His aunt, KK, who's in very bad health right now, was wonderful. He had this family that was so open and willing to talk, which was surprising because he was unwilling to talk. And he has good relations with his family. But they were just, it was kind of like, well, you took the time to come to Mississippi. We'll take the time to talk to you. And I spent hours and hours with the different Favres, which was great. Among Packers, there was just a rainbow of awesome people. Sterling Sharp was terrific. Craig Nall, great. Niall Diggs, Ryan Grant, Antonio Freeman. Just a ton of really good guys who gave me a lot of great stuff through the years.
Okay, Jeff, I don't know what happened to CD, but this is Al. Thanks for coming on with us.
Sure.
So listen, I was doing a little research for this interview, and I came across your blog at jeffpearlman.com, and I have to say, it's pretty much all over the place, and I mean that in a very good way. Okay, you write about a lot of different topics in a very engaging and humorous style, and as I was reading, I immediately knew you had to be from New York and New Jersey, right? I am too, so I think I can identify compadres, right? So sure enough, you grew up. Yeah, okay. You grew up in the mean streets of Mahopac?
That's Mahopac. Some people do say Mahopac. Yeah. I say Mahopac.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, my question is, how do you think your childhood experiences growing up where you did contributed to your writing style?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I will tell you this, a few things. When I was a kid, we had a small library in my town, the Mahopac Public Library, and there was a librarian there who, whenever a new sports biography or autobiography would come out, she would hold it for me. In fact, she would call my house and say, like, Jeff, the new Bo Jackson biography came in. I'm not going to put it out. Come down and get it. Or, Jeff, the new Mickey Mantle biography is out. Whatever, across the board. And I would go down and be the first to get it. And my dad worked in Stamford, Connecticut, and he would go to the Stamford Library and just take out like 7-8 sports books for me and bring them home. And I would be just like over the moon. It'd be, the Dave Winfield biography, the Ellis Valentine biography, the Joe Montana book, Terry Bradshaw. And reading those books, it really transported me because I grew up in a very white, very sort of conservative, very sheltered town. And those books took me to sort of, they taught me about sports and about different figures and different cultures and different places. So I would say the number one impact that town had on me was offering me all these books and encouraging me to read them. I mean, that was just huge for me, really huge.
Wow, that's great story. Jayme?
Okay, thanks, Jeff. I was also at your blog today, and I read the post, I think you tweeted out owing to it recently, about how you got started in writing, sports writing in particular. And this is a kind of print journalism, since that played such a role in your rise. And the current rise of the blogosphere and instant news with Twitter and all of that. Do you think that same kind of path exists today? And what advice would you have for a young writer today or someone looking to enter the profession?
Oh, that's a good question. So I'm a product of print journalism. I mean, my first job was at the Tennessean in Nashville. I wrote for Sports Illustrated for years. I really love print. But unfortunately, it just doesn't have much of a future. You can see it. I mean, newspaper circulations are plummeting. Afternoon newspapers no longer exist. Papers that do exist are tiny. I mean, the LA Times sports section alone used to be 25, 30 pages. Now the whole paper might be that much. It's really grim. So, I think for young journalists, the best thing you can do is be all over the place. Be on Twitter, be on Instagram, be on Snapchat, be on Facebook, pitch to every website, start your own website, start your own blog, start your own podcast. There are a lot of things. The beauty of Twitter, one of the things about Twitter that I feel like not enough young journalists see it as, is for outreach. I mean, if you want to pitch a story to the Green Bay Press-Gazette, but the sports editor somewhere, has his own Twitter account, you can reach him directly. Back when I was growing up or coming up, you had to sit down, you had to write him a letter, you had to send it off. So I do think what social media really provides a lot of young writers is access. I get hit up now. I mean, I'm not saying I'm anybody, but like when I was a kid, I would write to Sports Illustrated writers and write to different writers, and I would have to put a letter in the mail, and you would hope you would hear back, and usually didn't. Now I get people writing me all the time, just as I used to write writers, and it's right there, right in front of you. So I just think the opportunities that social media provides as far as outreach is unbelievable. It's like the greatest part of it all is you can reach anybody at any time.
Okay, great. Thanks. Michelle?
All right, Jeff. So getting back to Gunslinger for a moment, Brett Favre is a man, obviously, about whom a lot of ink has been spilled. But Gunslinger's receiving so much acclaim, I think, partially because you managed to shine a new light on him despite his notoriety. So my question is, when you were writing the book, what did you learn about Favre that was new to you and surprised you, something you hadn't known before?
Right, so the thing that happens with superstars a lot in sports is the same, we end up repeating the same 5 stories and same narratives over and over again. I first really saw that when I wrote a book about Walter Payton. And it was always the same stories. He's a kid from Mississippi. He broke the all-time rushing record. He was really tough. He used to run the mud hills, blah, blah, blah. And with Favre, same kind of thing. He's a kid from Mississippi. He had the Vicodin issues, but he was really tough, and teammates loved him, and his dad died, and he played a great game against Oakland, and he couldn't retire. Like, you'd hear those stories over and over again. And when you really dig into it, I mean, just a perfect example, his Atlanta year, his rookie year in Atlanta, in his own autobiography, he barely wrote about that year. It was 9 paragraphs. There's this fascinating period where he was a third stringer. He never played. He got drunk and fat. The coach hated him. But it was this formative year in the NFL that nobody ever talked about. And it was that year and the Jet year, in a lot of ways, were the most interesting years of his career because they were so, and the final year with Minnesota, those were my 3 favorite years to write about because they were so sort of under-recognized in the narrative. I mean, Brett Favre's last year with the Vikings, a lot of people forget that he had a season after the year when he took them to the NFC Championship game, and his last year in Minnesota was a disaster.
Right.
The roof caved in. Randy Moss, he encouraged the team to sign Randy Moss, and Randy Moss was a cancer in the locker room. The head coach got fired. Favre was terrible. His year ended on a concussion. He was slammed to the turf by Corey Wooten of the Bears. But his brother, Scott Favre, said to me, we were having coffee in Mississippi, and he said that was the most important year of Brett's career in a lot of ways. And I said, that's kind of weird. And he said, well, he needed to be pushed away. He wasn't going to be John Elway or Peyton Manning and just walk off into the sunset. He wasn't. He was never going to be that guy. Like, people said to me, well, would he have retired if the Packers won in 2007? No, because he would always be chasing something more. And he needed a push out the door. Like, he needed someone to say, you can't do this anymore. You're old and you're incapable. And that last year with the Vikings, and that last game against the Bears was sort of the push out he needed. So I found that really fascinating, actually.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting thing I never really thought about. Like, what would he have needed to stop? And clearly he needed something just like that.
Yeah, he needed to suck. He really did. He
right.
needed to be bad. Because if you think about it, he was really unusual, right? Like, I've been using, this year I used Arian Foster as an example. Like, Arian Foster retired from the Dolphins because his body said, factually, just said, you can't do this anymore. You're incapable of being a running back in the NFL anymore. Well, Favre's body didn't say that to him. He kept coming back because he kept playing at a super high level. So he actually he wasn't your normal athlete who he hits his mid-30s and you see this huge decline. He always had this arm. So he needed the Bears to beat the snot out of him. He needed the concussion. He needed the bad season to be done with.
Definitely. All right, thank you, Al.
Yeah, so Jeff, I heard the 5-minute audio snippet about your feelings and comments on the Packers organization and how uncooperative they can be with the media. Naturally, you took some heat from Packers fans, but you couldn't have been more dead-on right about it, and I'm really glad you were unafraid to say what you did. I think some of the local writers, may not have the freedom to speak so honestly on that, but in any case, my question is, what's your theory, or do you have a theory about where all this distrust and paranoia comes from?
Have they been bad to you guys? That's kind of interesting.
Well, I mean, not to go on my own rant here, but yeah, I mean, they have never given a credential to anyone outside of a standard newspaper or magazine or television. And there are plenty of fantastic alternative media sites about the Packers. I won't even mention ours, just so many of them, and people who have real journalists writing for them and can't get a single credential from the Packers organization. So I was not surprised at all to hear what you had to say.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because people took it as a slight. People took it as a slight against Packer fans. I put that thing out, and some people are very like, oh, and I was like, it's not. I love the Packer fans are amazing, and I'm not just saying that. Packer fans are amazing. It's the most passionate, diehard, unique group of fans I've ever seen. But the Packers are. It's interesting. As I noted, I'm from New York, right? So New York doesn't take crap. Chicago doesn't really take crap. L.A. generally doesn't take crap. And if an organization treats the media badly, the media will bite back. New York, they do not take it. They're not going to take it. The tabloids will not take it. Yeah. Green Bay is a one-team town, not just a one-sport, one-team town. And the Packers control the media. The Packers know if they deny access to you, you're screwed. The media knows if they deny access to you, you're screwed. So, I was working on this book, and it was incredibly frustrating. It's not like, and I'm not saying this with any arrogance. I'm not saying I'm David Halberstam, but I've had a bunch of books. I've had a bunch of bestsellers. I wrote for Sports Illustrated. I write for Bleacher Report. I've been in the business for a long time, and I reach out for a credential. I'm writing a book about Brett Favre, I asked for a credential for his press conference when he's being inducted into the when they're retiring his number, and they tell me, well, you're not working media. I don't know. Well, I don't even know what does that mean? I'm not working media. So eventually they gave me a credential. I will say they did give me a credential, but it was just a pain in the ass. And I was coming off a book where I was writing about, my book before that was about the Lakers, and from Jeannie Buss, the owner of the Lakers, to the PR department, I mean, they knew that book wasn't going to be 100% praise of the Lakers, but they were gracious and they were open and they were helpful. And I just found the Packers to be small and petty and paranoid.
Absolutely. That's our impression also, but
yep, I would agree. I also think, to be honest, they use the whole public team shareholder thing almost like a weapon. Like they use we a lot, and they can use we even though your piece of paper is relatively valueless. I mean, I think it's a cool thing, but they use we, and then they do a lot of greedy. I mean, right now they are, they're around the stadium, but they're doing they're basically putting the restaurants and bars that are unaffiliated with the Packers slowly out of business. And that's going to happen over the next few years, and it's horrible. So they're becoming a little bit of New York Yankees in a small town, I hate to say.
Interesting. Okay, Michelle?
All right, so kind of a fun one for you. If you had the time, resources, and access to write a biography about any living athlete today, who would it be and why?
Well, the next book I want to write is a non-sports. I really want to write a Tupac Shakur biography.
Nice.
I love hip-hop. Man. I do think there's a great book waiting to be written about the Miami Heat dynasty. I don't know if it's quite there yet time-wise, but I do think that whole LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh thing is pretty fascinating in the way it was put together, and Pat Riley. I also think there's a tremendous sort of Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield book waiting to be written, although I don't think boxing books sell very well. And to be honest, down the line, there's a really good Aaron Rodgers book waiting to be written, because I feel like a lot like Favre, there's a lot about that guy we don't know. We know the base facts, but there's a lot about him we don't know. And he's sort of in a similar way to Favre. He's much more, he's actually clearly cerebral. Favre was cerebral but kind of hid it, and Rodgers is cerebral and lets you know about it. But I think there's a lot of intelligence there and a lot of insight there. I think at some point Rodgers would be a really interesting book.
Yes, I definitely agree. And I think that's probably one where, especially just knowing some of the things we know about kind of his family and some of the people in his life, he obviously would have to be kind of out of the league and done playing for people to really talk honestly, but he's so guarded that I think there's a lot there that people just aren't privy to.
I agree 100%. I also think people are very unwilling. I mean, it's kind of like you said, like it helps when a person is retired. If you were writing that book now, an Aaron Rodgers book, you'd have to rely a lot on former teammates who have nothing to lose. The guys a lot of guys I talked to about Rodgers are, like Nigel Davenport, just as an example, the old running back. He was pretty open about Rodgers and did not find Rodgers very likable his rookie year. But Nigel Davenport has nothing to lose talking about Aaron Rodgers. So when you work on books like that, what you really need are people who have nothing to lose. They're not going to rely on Aaron Rodgers. They don't need Aaron Rodgers. They never see Aaron Rodgers. And it helps when the guy's retired.
Right. I mean, if you ask Devontae Adams about Aaron Rodgers, he might not get the ball next week. So
Exactly. Well said.
All right. Thank you. Jayme?
Okay, well, you're listening to Cheesehead Radio, and we are talking with Jeff Pearlman, author of Gunslinger. Jeff, one last question for you. You've written 7 books, all about pivotal and sometimes polarizing sports players and teams. What has been your favorite book to write, and why?
Oh, man. Well, I have 2. I would say the most fun was the Favre book, and I didn't expect that. I didn't even want to write this book. It was the truth of the matter is I'm working on a book now about the old United States Football League, the USFL, and that was my real dream sports book, and I could not get a deal for it. So I pitched Favre and got a 2-book deal. I pitched Favre and basically said, well, if you let me do Favre, if I do Favre, will you let me do USFL? So Howard Mifflin gave me this 2-book deal, and they said, but you have to do Favre first. And I was like, ugh, fine. And then I just loved it. I found Favre's family so amazingly warm and agreeable and accessible. I mean, I went to see Benita Favre. She sends me home with scrapbooks, from their house. It was unbelievable. I mean, her son, we didn't even know if her son was going to be talking to me yet. And I told her that. I said, I don't know if Brett's going to talk. And she just sits me down, have a Coke. It's her, me, and Brandy, his sister, sitting around. She's like, if you want to take some scrapbooks home, you can. Just the nicest people. So I really love that. And I also, writing about Walter Payton, he was such a hero of mine and such a fascinating guy that Favre and Peyton to me were, and both are guys. It's very interesting. You can make a very good argument that the three greatest players at their positions in NFL history are from the state of Mississippi. Favre is from Mississippi, Peyton's from Mississippi, and Jerry Rice is also from Mississippi. For such a small state, it's kind of amazing.
Okay, great. Thanks. CD?
Sure.
All right. We are talking with Jeff Pearlman. His book, Gunslinger, and many of his other featured books he's written are available at jeffpearlman.com. Certainly would encourage you to go over. And like I said, I'm in the middle of reading it and can't wait to finish it. Jeff, one final question for you before we let you go. Brett Favre made a little comment that he thinks the Packers can win the Super Bowl this year. They're going to be in the Super Bowl this year. Your thoughts?
It's really interesting. So my son is a huge Giants fan. And, you know, he has his favorite jerseys, his Eli jersey. We're from New York. And I thought the Giants had a really good shot at the Super Bowl, but I don't think they're going to beat Green Bay this weekend. I thought if the Giants were playing the Lions in the first round, the Giants were going to be a team to make the Super Bowl. Something about this matchup I do not like. And I think Favre is actually right. I mean, they're hot. Rodgers is playing out of his head. I think they're better than Dallas. I think Dallas is the most overrated, really good team we've seen in a while. I just don't think they're that great. I think the Packers are a better team. I agree. I actually think it's going to be a New England Green Bay Super Bowl, and I think New England will probably win. But I agree. I actually agree with Brett Favre on this one.
Fantastic. All right.
But my word,
Jeff, thank you very much.
Record,
go ahead.
I just want to say for the record, I picked the Jets to win the AFC East this year. So my predictions are
did you have to tell us that?
Oh, man.
Sorry, man.
Sold yourself out.
That's all right. All right. Well, I want to thank you very much, Jeff, for joining us tonight. Fantastic having you here. Best of luck with your books, and best of luck with your next one on Tupac or whoever you choose to write about it. You're a fantastic writer. Look forward to your next stuff.
All right. Thank you all very much. Take care.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Good night.
That was pretty awesome.
That was an interesting interview. He had some really good answers to Jayme's question about what young writers should be focusing on, and some of the other questions. His answer to my question about influence of growing up, and about his father going to the library and getting him books, and had a contact at the library in his town that would save books for him. That's really interesting stuff. You can kind of visualize the author, developing under that type of atmosphere. So I thought it was a very interesting interview.
I agree, and I was really taken when I was at his blog today and read that post about how he became a sports writer, because it was one of the things I like about Jeff is he's very honest and can be self-deprecating. Like, he repeatedly says that he was insufferable and arrogant and cocky growing up, and how he, wouldn't even listen when people were giving him good advice, and it took him some time, and it was a very detailed process of like wanting to, not even be allowed to write for his middle school paper, to going to his high school paper, to all of like the internships and the things and the horrible, like the bad things that he would put, like his bad leads or misspellings and all of these things, or misquoting people. And I'm like, that would bury someone today. And he persevered and kept fighting through it and like found his niche and his way. And it was really, as someone who enjoys writing, and I never wanted to do it as a profession, but really, enjoyed it and used to do it a lot more, it was really interesting to see that evolution. But it's so different now. Like, no one comes up writing and then goes to their local paper and just like starts thinking around there. Like, that's just not what happens, because your local paper barely exists. And if it's your local paper, it's owned by one of three papers nationally.
Yeah,
no, I found that.
I was saying before that I think obviously like it's sort of preaching to the choir, and I was an English major and I'm a writer and editor now, but I think that I loved his story about the library too, because I think that we tell kids they can like be whatever they want to be when they grow up, but I think the most important thing you can do for a child, any child who wants to be anything, whether it's an engineer or a sports writer, is put books in their hands when they're young. And I really firmly believe that. And I'm, such a big believer of libraries and the good they do for communities. And yeah, I think that if you want your kid to gain confidence in what they want to do, have them start reading about it from a really young age and give them as many books as they can handle. So I loved that.
Yeah, good stuff.
I like getting a chance to interview an author like this because I think, if you go to a movie and you see a really good performance and you just appreciate the performance, but you don't think a lot about it, and then maybe you see a documentary on everything that maybe an actor did to research his part, spent 6 weeks in a boot camp training or in a hospital researching for the role so that when he comes into the role, it's so perfect and so researched you don't even realize it. And I think talking with Jeff, you kind of realize how much work goes into a book like this. And you realize that when you open up and read the pages, just the personality of the guy. I mean, he's, like you said, very self-depreciating, but very passionate and very opinionated. And you see all the people he had to talk to. I think that makes the book even better when you know that there's a real person who put a lot of work into this, and it's a passion that he has for a player like Favre, but for sports in general. So definitely recommend the book.
For sure.
Yeah. Let's get a little bit into the playbook, guys, all right? Transition time.
The playbook.
Ed Hockley.
Iron Man.
Like, what is he going to talk about? And
2
Yeah,
words.
right?
Ed
This wasn't in the script.
Hockley. No.
He's gone off.
This is the playbook. This is the playbook. We
other
can
go-
talk about whatever the heck we want. Ed
Now, wait a minute.
Hockley.
You're going off that chart. You got that chart in front of your face. You got to call the plays on that chart, no?
No.
This is
It's like a
Audible.
Cellcom
No,
commercial. If you just give us a
Audible.
scandal all day, Mike, well, we'll run that. This is what we're doing.
So you know Mike McCarthy, huh? I see.
Yeah. So Ed Hockley is going to be calling the game on Sunday. He's been the head referee for 5 playoff games involving the Packers. What's the Packers' record in those 5 games?
I have
Go
a
ahead.
feeling you're
Take a
going to
guess.
tell us.
Take a guess.
Take a guess. I'm going to say, let me ask you this. How recent were they? Were they all within the last how many years?
There's some in the mid-1990s, several involving the Dallas Cowboys, if that doesn't give you a clue.
Oh, we're going back. Okay, so this is going back. 1 and 4.
Worse.
I mean, yeah, you're
Oh,
trying to make a
5?
very dramatic point, so I think it has to be 0-5.
It's 0-5.
So not -1 and 6.
all three of the Dallas games in the 90s, Super Bowl against the Broncos,
Oh,
Really?
and 4th and 26.
so
against
like
the
not
Eagles.
even just losses, like
No. Playoff losses
Iconic
that were
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
stab you in
Ed
the heart.
Hockley has been privy to the worst moments in Packers history.
He is the black cat that crosses the Packers' path.
Oh, you've ruined my whole vibe for this week. You know that?
6
know?
6 times a charm.
There you go. That's a very popular saying somewhere.
For people that like counting to 3 twice.
In some universe somewhere.
So, on that note, I think they're going to win.
I thought you were just going to bring up Ed Hockley because it's the other gunslinger because he's got the guns.
Yeah.
And I thought you were
Oh,
just trying to
very
stay
good.
with the
Regimen.
theme of the show.
Oh,
I would have
man.
preferred that.
I would. Well, got to call it like you see it. Well, toss right. What
Says
else?
Ed
If
Hockley.
I'm going off script, you go ahead and get us back on script there, Jersey Al.
Back on script. Okay, so I guess it's time for our Hot Pockets.
That would be in the script, I guess. All right, here we go.
Yes, well, I'm waiting for the sting. Okay,
All right.
I did my part.
Nicely done. I'll start out with my Hot Pocket this week. One thing that impressed me about the Lions game was the first half where the Packers went completely, well, maybe not completely, but very, very much off script. Aaron Ripkowski was running the ball left and right and gaining yards, and Aaron Rodgers was going back and passing and passing and passing. Jared Cook, Richard Rodgers, the wide receivers were basically sitting over on a porch swing and hanging out that entire first half. Ty Montgomery didn't touch the ball much the entire first half. So it was almost a completely different team, and I thought I was very impressed with that because they went with what works, even if it wasn't the normal game plan. I think that's an excellent precursor going into these playoff games that Mike McCarthy, ever criticized for his play calling, was willing to do what was working, and oh my gosh, he stuck with it. Guess what? Whole first half, Ripkowski, Jared Cook, Richard Rodgers. Sure, they came out the second half and mixed it up again a little bit, but he went with what works, and that's something he hasn't done. A very good sign for the playoffs. And that is
your
Hot Pocket.
Jersey Al, you're up next.
Excuse me. My Hot Pocket is going to be the unexpected stellar play of Ladarius Gunter. Right? Now, here's a guy, undrafted free agent, with all the injuries in the secondary. He's basically our number one quarterback right now, right? He's our shutdown corner. He's probably going to have to track Odell Beckham across the field, all over the field. Not the fastest guy in the world, but sticks to players like glue, makes it hard to get away from him if he gets in your body. Always knows how to work that fine line between, little interference and just kind of getting in the way. He's going to be crucial in this game. Ladarius Gunter, my key for this game. And that was my
Hot Pocket.
Yes, I'm loving this.
Good. Michelle,
you're
That's
up
a
next.
different place.
What, is that you're mixing up your slogans? I told you guys we don't want to make Nestle mad. We want sponsorship. Okay, well, similarly to Al, but going in a different direction, we talked about how the secondary could make or break this game, and I think that another member of the secondary, Micah Hyde, could end up being a key to this game, especially if we see Quentin Randall Dorley is on IR, so he's definitely going to be out for the game. But I was just, I thought it was so funny that in an almost prescient way, Golden Tate said before the game last week that Micah Hyde was a jack of all trades, and then it came about that Micah Hyde, who hasn't played perimeter corner in 4 years, was asked to line up on the perimeter and cover Golden Tate. And he did a pretty great job of it, including his kind of walk-off, game-sealing interception, which honestly, those are the kinds of play. The Packers secondary doesn't really nail it on the kind of key fundamental plays, but they have been delivering on the kind of splashy big plays, which I'm sure Dom Capers is, he has to be happy about the interceptions and things like that, but he doesn't love when they freelance. He likes when they do their assignments and do them well. But these are the types of plays you need in playoff games to win. You need the dramatic interception in the fourth quarter when your opponent is driving. You need momentum-turning, game-changing plays. And I think that Micah Hyde, some players don't like the term jack of all trades because it implies that they're good at many things but not great at anything. But I think we've seen that he can be anywhere on the field and make a play, and I think the Packers are going to need that from him again against the Giants. And he's probably not fast enough or athletic enough to really blanket Odell Beckham, but if he can just get himself into the right place at the right time, as he's done, I believe he has 3 or 4 interceptions on the year total, he could be a game changer. So that is my Hot Pocket.
Jayme.
Okay, well, my Hot Pocket this week is rather short, simple, and sweet, and that is we have spent the last 6 games, and not necessarily all of us, but just we as a collective fan base, maybe not every day, but some days, most days, just terrified, complaining, upset, worried, someone should get fired, and in fact, at least 3 times people have requested Micah Hyde be fired in the middle of games. So I love that he's now very important. But there's been so much upsetness and just tension this whole season. And will they get to the playoffs? They're never going to get to the playoffs again. This is over. We've ruined Aaron Rodgers. His window is closed, I think some people say. And Mike McCarthy is done. He's ruined everything. Ted Thompson needs to go. Everyone. And we still ended up in the playoffs. We are here. And I was asked today at work if I wanted to go on a deployment, not for a national disaster. There's not a secret one no one knows about, but just something else. And it would have been relatively easy. It would have gotten nicer hotels, and it wouldn't have been terribly hard. It probably would have been just a lot sitting around. And I was like, you know what? No, because and this went through my brain, if we make a deep run in the playoffs, I want to be able to enjoy it. And so I know that no matter when the Packers season finishes, if it finishes on Sunday, if it finishes after the Super Bowl, there's still questions that need to be answered. But I am just really going to try to get myself to, and I encourage others to just actually sit back and enjoy this ride. We weren't supposed to be here, and now we're the 4th seed. We have a home playoff game, and we're the hottest team, and Jeff Pearlman thinks we're better than Dallas. So enjoy that. Enjoy the fact that we're not awful. We are in the playoffs. My husband, who's a Washington fan, just at me and goes, "Why do you get Aaron Rodgers?" There are other people out there who whine that they're not us. I live with one of them. So sit back, enjoy it. That's my CD.
Hot Pocket.
Button wasn't working.
Nothing worse than a delayed Hot Pocket. You know, having to wait for your Hot Pocket. No.
I was so entranced with her inspiring speech.
You were just sitting back and enjoying it.
There was a tear in my eye. It was wonderful. Anyway, let's get to it.
Cheesehead Radio. Packers game predictions.
That was a little loud. The Green Bay Packers in the playoffs. Maybe weren't supposed to be here, but they are. Taking on the New York Giants, who, incidentally, over the last 10 years, have had 1 or 2 games where they've come onto Lambeau Field turf and have kind of won. Sometimes in situations that the Packers were heavily favored at home and won a game. Am I correct, guys, that every time, I think it was 2007 and 2011, did they not win the Super Bowl both years, the Giants, after they beat us in the playoffs?
I think so. I think they went through Green Bay twice, yeah.
Yeah.
Very unexpectedly, and of course, 2011, they pulled, I think, the 6th seed. And won.
Yeah.
So, so definitely some history here. A little scary, but hopefully we have a lot of confidence. We're going to start with Michelle, your Packer game prediction.
All right. So this is a very different Packers team than the one that beat the Giants in Week 5. That Packers team hadn't yet found its identity on offense, though the defense was more reliable at that time, to say the least. But at this point, it's going to come down to one thing. Can the excellent Giants defense limit the Packers offense, which is the run game going now behind Ty Montgomery and with Aaron Rodgers having found his rhythm? The answer is probably no, but just barely. I think it's going to be pretty close. So I'm going Packers 21, Giants 17.
All right. I am C.D. Angeli, and I am definitely scared. The Giants have the Packers number, and I don't know if the Packers defense is ready to take that step up for playoff caliber football. It's true. It's, you win or you're done. But you got to remember the other team is feeling that too. So you're going to see teams elevate themselves to their highest level. And I don't know if that Giants defense has a little more ceiling to reach, obviously than our Packers defense, but hopefully not as high as our Packer offense has a ceiling. I think it's going to be very close. I think it's going to be a very hard-fought battle. I'm going to say Packers 24, Giants 23.9. Going to make it very, very close.
That would be very close.
And very strange.
It would be. But Ed Hockley is reffing, so anything is possible. Jayme.
Well, I feel that everyone on Packers fandom will know what my pick is going to be. Packers 28, Giants 21. It has worked for the last 6 games. I am sticking with my prediction, but I actually do feel that the Packers are the hotter team, and so they should win. Dear God, please. So, yes. 28-21. Sticking with it until we win the Super Bowl.
Run the table, Jayme.
I'm
the
still
really long
running
table.
it.
With a lot
You
of
added
leaves.
that leaf. I'm still going.
There you go.
Jersey Al.
Yes, okay. So the Packers come into this game, and Aaron Rodgers particularly red hot, right? But that's happened before, and we saw things not go so well. This time around, I think the Packers will prevail. I think they break the spell that the Giants have had on them in the playoffs recently. It's going to be very close, not as close as your score, CD. I don't have a 23.9 in there. But I think the Packers win it by a field goal. My guy, Mason Crosby, yes, Jayme, my guy, Mason Crosby, is going to kick the winning field goal, and the Packers run off the field in victory, 20-17.
I like it.
Awesome. Is anyone going to the game?
I am.
Jersey, how's it going?
Ooh, exciting.
I am. Yep.
Well, travel safely. Are you going to fly? Are you going to fly with the Giants?
No. Trying to avoid
to
that.
ride with them.
Stow away.
I'm sure there'll be plenty of Giant fans with me, but that's okay.
Try to convert
Jayme,
them.
Michelle, no go?
No.
No, I gotta cover it. The Wi-Fi, as we all know, is terrible at Lambeau. So even if I did want to go and try to live vlog from Lambeau, it would be an ill-fated attempt.
Yeah.
Actually, I will say I went to a game this year, and the Wi-Fi is considerably better than it's been in past seasons.
So you're saying there's a chance.
You're saying there's a chance. Unfortunately, I think my phone will freeze by the time I get around to trying to live vlog anything, so it's going to be chilly.
Are you going,
it's very
Stevie?
cold up here. Leaving it up in the air. We'll see.
Leaving it up in the air.
Yeah.
I know we're going to try to, if you're around Saturday night, we haven't announced yet, but we're going to try to set up, like a little meetup or something at one of the bars on Saturday night. Get all our buddies from the blogosphere and readers together and meet up. So haven't announced it, haven't finalized it yet. But in the next day we should have those plans announced. So maybe you can stop by if you're around.
I am there.
You're there? Well, there we go.
I am there.
You just made the whole event. Now I can use your name. I can use your name to publicize it now. Right, exactly.
I'm bringing Ed Hockley with me.
Oh, boy. If you can find him, stuff him in a closet somewhere, okay, and lock the door away. That's what you need to do. Don't bring him out. Don't let him get out.
Do they make closets big enough to fit those arms?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe walk-in closets, huge walk-in closets. All right.
Awesome.
We're off the rails.
Off the rails again. Jayme, all ready?
Yep. Well, thank you all so much for joining us tonight on Cheesehead Radio, and a special thanks to Jeff Pearlman for also joining us. Make sure to head on over to PackersTalk.com, where you can explore several unique Packers podcasts. Please follow @PackersTalkNet on Twitter and like the Packers Talk page on Facebook. Cheesehead Radio and all Packers Talk podcasts are available on iTunes. Just Google Packers Talk iTunes, and you'll find it. Be sure to subscribe, and please leave us a great review if you can. You can also listen in by using Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, or your favorite podcasting app and search for Packers Talk. Finally, please, please, please be sure to support our wonderful sponsor, Ticket King. You can find them online at theticketking.com. That's theticketking.com. That's a wrap, and go Pack Go. Beat the Giants.
Giants are going down.
Good night, everybody. Go Pack Go.
See you all next week, everyone.
Good night.
Playoff football, Green Bay Packers. Good night, everyone.